Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. In this masterclass, we'll see that how you can make use of Elastic Beanstalk to deploy your applications and services without getting into the complexities of infrastructure. So let's see the list of topics that will be included in this masterclass. We'll start with the Elastic Beanstalk overview. Over here, we'll see that what's the purpose of the Elastic Beanstalk and why we use it in AWS. Then we'll start with the Elastic Beanstalk components. Now, in the Elastic Beanstalk components, we have three main categories: application, application version, and environment. Then we'll just deploy our Elastic Beanstalk first environment. So this would be a simple environment. We'll not go into much complex details, and we'll see that how you can make use of Elastic Beanstalk to deploy a Node.js application. Then we'll just launch an advanced or prod environment. This would be an advanced or the production level environment where we use the high availability configuration preset. So we use the high availability option to use the load balancer and the auto scaling to be included as a part of our Elastic Beanstalk environment. Then we'll discuss the deployment options or policies. So there are multiple deployment options and policies we'll discuss, ranging from all at once, then rolling with additional batches, immutable. Then we'll have the hands-on. So we'll discuss that how you can make use of Elastic Beanstalk to deploy an environment using the immutable deployment policy. So we'll just update our existing application using the immutable deployment policy. Then we'll just implement blue-green deployment. Now the purpose of the blue-green deployment is that you can make use of two different environments and you can just split your traffic into half using the Route 53 DNS settings. So we'll see that how you implement that. Then we'll just discuss the advanced concepts. In the advanced concepts, we'll discuss about the extension files, the lifecycle policy, and we'll discuss about the two type of environment tiers that you can deploy. One is the web server tier and the other one is the worker tier. Then we'll see that how you can add a database to an existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. So in this lab session, we'll see that how you can add on a MySQL database instance to be the part of a existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. Last but not the least, we'll see that how you can decouple an Amazon RDS instance from an Elastic Beanstalk environment. Now, this is very important because once you incorporate the database with the Elastic Beanstalk environment, in that case, if you delete your environment, your database is also deleted or terminated. So in that case, we'll see the process, the hands-on process, the step-by-step process to decouple the existing RDS database instance from the Elastic Beanstalk environment. So these are things we'll discuss one by one in detail. So let's jump over to our first lecture and we just go step by step, topic by topic to complete the entire Elastic Beanstalk masterclass. So let's get started. The very first thing we'll see that what are the challenges or issues being faced by developers if they have to deploy their applications upon AWS cloud platform. Let's suppose that you have to deploy a 3-tier architecture. This means that there are multiple components that need to be created and configured when you have to deploy a 3-tier application or the architecture. And you might need to deploy multiple applications. Each application will consist of several environments like test, dev, and prod. And you can maintain multiple application versions of each application at the same time. This means that there are a lot of complexities involved in the management and the deployment of an infrastructure. You might have some scaling concerns. You will be using auto scaling in most of the applications so that you can use auto scaling to automatically scale out or scale in. I would say increase or decrease the number of instances based upon the patterns of the incoming traffic, time of day, and the demand. You want to achieve consistency across different applications and environments. Overall, as a developer, you want your code to run. So you'll be using Beanstalk to solve these challenges or issues. What is Elastic Beanstalk? It's a developer-centric view of deploying an application on AWS. You can quickly deploy and manage applications. You don't have to look into the infrastructure. You don't have to learn about the infrastructure components like EC2, load balancer, auto scaling groups, Elastic IPs, and so on that runs those applications. So you just manage your applications and you don't have to look into the details or the complexities of the infrastructure. It reduces management complexity without restricting choice or control. You simply upload your application and Elastic Beanstalk will take care of everything, starting from capacity provisioning, load balancing, scaling, and application health monitoring. Let's see some of the basic components of the Elastic Beanstalk. We have three main components: application, application version, and an environment. Let's start with the application. An application is nothing but it's a logical collection, or it's a combination of multiple Elastic Beanstalk components, including environments, versions, and environment configurations. Then we have application version. It is nothing but it is a application source bundle, or it's a deployable code. For example, a Java WAR file. So you make use of the application versions, or a package, a source bundle, or a piece of code, and that's the application version that you use to deploy your applications. An application version is a part of an application. Applications can have many versions, and each application version is unique. The third component is environment. An environment is nothing but it's a logical collection of AWS resources that you use to run an application version. Each environment runs only one application version at a time. You can run the same application version or different application versions in many environments simultaneously. When you create an environment, Elastic Beanstalk provisions the resources needed to run the application version you specified. So these are the three main components of your Elastic Beanstalk. Let's see the workflow, how Elastic Beanstalk works for you. Let's imagine you want to create an application, you want to deploy an application. So you upload an application version. It's a source bundle or it's a deployable code. So you upload the application version and it will launch an environment. So an environment is nothing but it's a collection of AWS resources that you need to run an application version, and you can manage your environment. So this means that whenever you create an application and when you deploy an environment, you have deployed a new application version. After that, you can also update that application version by using or changing the source code. So this is the workflow of the Elastic Beanstalk. Last but not the least, let's see that how you're being charged for using this service. There's no additional charge for using Elastic Beanstalk. You don't have to pay even a single penny for it. However, you pay for the underlying AWS resources that you use or that your application consumes. For example, you might deploy EC2 instances, load balancers, or any other resource. So you have to pay for those resources. However, you don't have to pay for Elastic Beanstalk as a service. So that's how you're being charged for using the services, I would say the resources. But for Elastic Beanstalk, there's no charge. You pay for the underlying resources like instances, load balancers, etc. So that's the overview of the Elastic Beanstalk. We'll just jump to our AWS Dynamic console and we'll deploy a simple application using the Elastic Beanstalk. First of all, we just go to the compute section and click on Elastic Beanstalk. I click on create new application on the right hand side. And now I have to assign a name to this application. I can just name it my app demo. And I can just include a description. However, I can skip it. You can add a tag, but this is optional. So once you assign a name, click on create and this creates an application. Now for that application, you have to create an environment. So let's click on create one now and I choose the web server environment. So if you want to run a website, a web application or web API that serves HTTP requests, in that case, you make use of the web server environment. So I go with the web server environment because I want to deploy a web application or websites in the front end. I click on select right now. And now you have to define some specifications for this environment. First of all, I include the name. So I just keep the name as it is. If you want, you can change it. I can copy this name and include that as my domain name. So if I just click on check availability, this means that I can use this domain to access the website that will be created using this environment. We can just assign a description. However, we can just leave it as it is. It is not important or essential. The next thing we have to choose is the base configuration. Under base configuration, you have to choose the platform published and maintained by Beanstalk. Now, these are the pre-configured platforms you can make use of. For example, we have Docker, multi-container Docker. We have Go, .NET, Java, Node.js, Ruby, PHP, Python, Tomcat, Glassfish. So you can make use of any one of these pre-configured platforms. In our example, we go with Python. Then we have to choose the application code that will be used to deploy this environment. Now, I'll use sample application because I'm not using any of the pre-configured template or code. So I choose the sample application. I click on create environment, and now it will start deploying the things by itself, including the instance, its IP address, its security group, S3 bucket. Everything will be deployed from scratch, from beginning to the end. The best part is that you can manage these resources afterwards. So as of now, we have to wait for a few minutes because it will take some time for it to deploy all the resources from scratch to the end. Let's wait. I'll pause this video. Once this entire deployment is done, then I'll show you that what things it has deployed. Welcome back. As you can see that it deployed everything from scratch. It launched instance, its IP address, it configured every attribute of that instance, and it deployed my Python platform upon which I can start deploying my applications or I start with the development. Now, if I just click on this URL, I click on this right now, you can see that it's displaying this web page. So this gives a platform for any developer to start using it and start with the deployment process of applications and services. That's all about deploying a web server environment using Elastic Beanstalk. Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. In this video, we'll deploy an Elastic Beanstalk environment, which will be much more advanced in nature because we'll be using the high availability preset to ensure that we can include some advanced capabilities like the load balancers and auto-scaling groups, etc., so that we can create a production level environment. So let's get started and let's start with the entire process. We are back to our AWS management console, and the very first thing we'll do is that we'll just go to the compute section, and under compute, just click on Elastic Beanstalk so that we can just go to the Elastic Beanstalk dashboard. Now let's go to get started. Let's click on that. So once you click on get started, we have to create a web app. Now, this is the application that we will deploy. And the very first environment would be a test environment. So it would not be the advanced environment. And once we deploy the test environment, then we'll just go with the production type of environment or the advanced environment. So I just go ahead and just define the name of the application. So I just name it as Node.js app. The platform that I will choose would be Node.js, and the application code would be the sample application. I just go ahead and click on create application. Now it will just choose the default parameters and it will deploy a complete application with an environment with some default settings. So it will take some time and it will just deploy my environment within the application with a basic minimum configuration. Now I just want to go advanced because I want to maintain two different environments. One would be my test environment and the other would be the production level environment. So this is my test environment. So if I just go to my app, you will see that as of now, it's going to deploy my test environment, right? So in the meantime, I will deploy another environment, which would be my production level environment. So how do I do that? I just go to the actions on the top right hand corner and click on create environment. So this is the second environment that we want to manufacture. Now, the thing is that you will see there are two options out. There are two types of environments that you have. So there are two environment tiers that you can deploy. One is the web server environment and the other one is the worker environment. So we'll discuss the details or the differences between these two afterwards. But just to give you a brief overview, the web server environment is used to deploy some web applications. And the work environment is used for the processes that take a long time to execute. So if you want to run some batches or do some processing, then you just create the worker environment. But as of now, we want to deploy the web server environment because we want to deploy a web application, an HTTP website. So this is my second environment, and this would be the web server environment. So I choose this option and click on select. Now, we have to choose some options over here. The very first thing is that I deploy this environment with the environment name as, for example, I can just type anything. I can just type my domain name or anything. So I can just type in, for example, prod environment, something like that. So you can just define any name over here. And that's it. This is my production environment. Then the next thing I will do is that I define the domain name. So this domain name can be linked with my own domain in Route 53. I just type in my domain name, my app in prod, something like that. Now I need to see that whether this domain name is available or not. So just click on check availability, and yes, this is available. Now I can just define a description. So I just type in, this is my production environment. So I can just type any description to briefly describe the purpose behind this environment. And once I do that, I scroll down and choose the base configuration. The very first thing we'll do is that we'll choose the pre-configured platform. I'll choose Node.js, and the application code would be the sample application, right? So I'll just go with the sample one. Now, this time I will not just straight away go to this option, create environment, and just click on that. Instead, I just go to configure more options. Now, this is where the main thing has to be done. You have to go with some advanced options so that you can deploy a production level environment. Now, these are some of the presets, some of the advanced presets. For example, we have high availability, single instance using spot instance, high availability using spot and on-demand instances, custom configuration, and so on. So you can go with any one of the advanced options. So I want to go with the high availability advanced preset. And these are the things that I will get once I go with the high availability. For example, let's go through some of the options out there. If I go with the high availability, it will include a load balancer. So if I just go to the load balancer settings, so I choose load balancer, click on modify. You will see that right now, or in this environment, it will include an application load balancer. Okay. If I want, I can change to classic or network, but let's go with the application. So it will include an application load balancer with this environment. Okay. I just click on cancel and go back. Now, for example, I want to just go to some more advanced settings. For example, I want to look for the capacity. So I just go to the capacity on the right hand side, and you will see that it also includes the auto scaling. If I just click on modify, you can see that this is the environment type load balanced. This is the minimum and the maximum number of instances. So I can change, for example, 5 as the maximum number of instances to be deployed. Fleet composition would be on-demand instances. And I can change all these parameters if I want, right? So for example, I can change the triggers. So instead of choosing the metric as network out, I can choose CPU utilization. And the statistic would be average. Unit would be the percentage. And I'll not change the timers, the period, the breach duration. The upper threshold I will choose as 70%, and the lower threshold would be 30%. So I can change these parameters if I want. I can change the attributes. I go ahead and click on save. So as of now, I have accepted the default load balancer options, and I've changed some of the auto scaling options. And if I want, I can just go with the notifications. I just go to notifications over here and click on modify. I can specify my email address so that I would be notified if any of the events trigger within this environment. So for example, if the auto scaling will launch, terminate some instances, So in that case, in case of launching or termination of the instances, I will be notified. So it will send or shoot an email to this email ID. Okay. I click on save right now, and that's been done. So I can change any one of these parameters if I want. So I've changed few parameters, some attributes. If I want, I can include some databases. I can include some tags. So this is all about the stuff. As of now, because I've changed some of the parameters from high availability, it has switched to the custom configuration because I've customized a few settings. Now let's go ahead and click on create environment. And now it will just encapsulate or just take all the different parameters or the things that are included, and it will deploy my production environment. Now I'll just go ahead and click on the Node.js app. On the left hand side, you can see that my test environment has been deployed and my production environment is still in progress. Now, if I just go to my test environment, you will see that I can just go to the events on the left hand side, and these are the resources that it has deployed. It has just deployed one single instance with no load balancer, no auto scaling. Simple instance with a Node.js package or the platform installed upon it. So you can see that over here, it just added one instance. It attached this Elastic IP to that instance and all the different attributes of the instance and so on. That's it. No load balancer, no auto scaling, simple test environment. And if I just click on the URL, it will show me this web page. Now going back, I'll just go back to my Node.js app, and you can see that my production environment is still pending. It is still in progress. It is still getting deployed. So let's go to my prod environment, my production level environment, and you can see that it's still working behind the scenes, and it will deploy every single component that was included in my custom configuration. So we have to wait for some time. It will take 3 to 4 minutes before we can see this environment to be up and running. So I'll pause this video, and once this is over, I'll just resume and show you all different components to be deployed. Welcome back. As you can see that this environment is being deployed completely. This is my production environment. And as you can see that this is the health, it's okay. So the status is okay. This means that everything is being deployed properly without any issues. Now if I show you the events, you can see that in this environment, it deployed everything ranging from the instances, my load balancer and the auto scaling group, etc. So if you see from scratch, this is the SNS topic that it manufactured. And then this is the target group of my load balancer, the auto scaling launch configuration and auto scaling group, the instance, load balancer listener configuration, auto scaling group policy. So we can change the policies by just going to the auto scaling, and we can just manipulate or we can modify these settings, the CloudWatch and everything. So you can see that a lot many things were deployed within this environment, which were much more advanced in nature. So it included the load balancer plus the auto scaling group and other advanced settings. So this is my production level environment. Now if I just go to my Node.js app, so on the left hand side, this is my test environment and this is my prod environment. So this is how you can maintain multiple environments in a single application. And we deployed this advanced environment, this production level environment, this prod environment with some advanced settings. So what you have to do is that you have to just go to the advanced options, configure more options, and you can choose any of the presets ranging from the custom configuration, high availability, and so on. So you can customize the settings during the time when you want to deploy an environment, and you get some customized settings depending upon your choice and your preference. So that's how you do that. That's how you deploy an advanced, or I would say the production level environment in your application, and you can maintain multiple environments in a single application. So that's all about from my side. Thank you so very much. In this video of the lecture, we'll discuss the deployment options or policies, starting from all at once, rolling with additional batches, and immutable. Let's have a brief overview. All at once, which means that you deploy everything in one go. this is the fastest of entire lot, but the instances are not available to serve traffic for a bit. So there's a downtime. We have rolling, which means that you update a few instances at a time. You take a batch size. So once you update one batch of the instances, and once that batch is healthy, you move on to the next batch of instances. Rolling with additional batches. Over here, just to ensure that you don't lose the capacity, you spin up some new batches and then you just go with the same concept. Immutable, you spin up new instances in a new autoscaling group, you deploy version to these new instances, and then you swap all the instances when everything is healthy. Now we'll just move on and discuss each of these things in detail, all at once. So let's imagine you have 4 different instances with the version 1 application running upon them, and you want to update all these 4 instances. Once you go with this deployment strategy, or you want to update these instances, you have to take down all the instances. So all the instances will be out of service, and you update all the instances with a new application version, which is version 2. So this is great because this is fastest of the entire lot. But over here, there's a downtime because before version 2 is updated, or before your instances are being updated with the latest version of your software or the application, there's a downtime. So this is the fastest deployment of the entire lot. The application has some downtime. It's great for quick iterations in development environment. However, there's no additional cost. So these are the features and the benefits of this deployment or the update strategy. The next one is rolling. Now, let's imagine you have 4 different instances and you want to update all of them. Instead of updating all the instances at once, we take a batch size. For example, we take the first 2 instances because our batch size is 2. And we shut down, or we take the first 2 instances out of service. We upgrade these first 2 instances with a new version of our application, which is version 2. So once the first 2 instances are being updated with the latest version of our application, we take the another batch size of 2 and we take the last 2 instances out of service. And then we update the last 2 instances with the latest version of our application. So now we have all the 4 instances with the version 2 running upon them. So this is the concept of rolling. Now this is great. However, over here you will see one thing. You lose your capacity because once your batch size is taken for the upgradation, you lose half of the capacity. So let's see the features. The application will be running below capacity. So during the time when you take the batch size and your batch is being updated, for example, in our case, 2 instances are getting updated. So at that time, our application will be running below capacity. You can set the batch size if you want. The application will run both the versions simultaneously. There's no additional cost involved. There's a long deployment because once you go with this updation policy or you upgrade your application, you have to go with batches concept. So you go batch by batch. So this means that this facilitates, or this will lead to longer deployment. Then we have rolling with additional batches. Now this is the advanced version of rolling. Over here, you have the same number of instances, 4, with version 1 running upon them. Now what we do is that at the initial stage, we will just add on 2 new instances with the latest version running upon them, which is version 2. So over here, we have 4 instances with version 1 running upon them, and we have 2 additional batches. I would say not 2 additional batches, 2 additional instances. So we take a batch size of 2. We initiate a new batch over here, an additional batch with the latest application version running upon the instances. Now we have the batch size of 2. So we take the first 2 instances out of service and we upgrade these instances to the version 2 of our application. Then we take the another batch, which means 3rd and 4th instance, and we take the 3rd and 4th instances out of service. And we upgrade our 3rd and 4th instances with the latest version of our application, which is version 2. Now we have 6 instances with the same version 2 running upon them. We have 2 extra instances. So in the next stage, we will terminate these 2 instances because we don't need them anymore. So in this process, in this entire overview, if we just go with the rolling with additional batches, we have to initiate an extra batch at the initial stage. The purpose of deploying an extra batch is that you don't lose your capacity, because in rolling, as we have seen in the previous demonstration or the previous deployment policy, we have seen that if we just take half of the instances out, we lose the capacity. To solve that issue, we go with additional batches. So we just deploy the additional batch over here to ensure that we don't lose the capacity. But the downside of this deployment strategy is that it will incur you some additional cost because you have to pay for 2 extra instances. So let's see the features right now. The application is running at capacity. You can set the batch size. The application will be running both the versions simultaneously. There's a small additional cost because you'll be executing or you'll be initiating new batches at the initial stages. The additional batch is removed at the end of the deployment because you don't need that after all your instances are being upgraded. And this leads to longer deployment. It's good for the production environment. So that's all about the rolling with additional batches. So if you compare rolling and rolling with additional batches, the only difference is that in rolling with additional batches, you execute a new batch at the initial stage, and once your entire fleet is being updated, that extra batch of instances is being removed. So that's all about the rolling with additional batches. Last but not the least, we have immutable. In this concept or the deployment strategy, you make use of the auto-scaling group. So we involve or we include all these instances in our auto-scaling group. So over here, we have 3 instances with the version 1 of our application running upon them included in one of our existing auto-scaling group. Now we want to update these instances to the latest version, which is the version 2. What we do is that we deploy a new auto-scaling group, that's a temporary auto-scaling group with the same number of instances. However, those 3 instances over here in our case will have the latest version running upon them. Afterwards, we manage, or this deployment strategy will include all these new instances in the existing version of our auto-scaling group, or I would say in the current auto-scaling group, in the existing auto-scaling group, these 3 instances would be included. So now we have 6 instances up and running. So the first 3 instances will be running the previous version of the software or the application, and the last 3 instances will be running the latest version or the version 2 of our application. In the next stage or the last stage, the version 1 instances are being terminated and we keep the version 2 instances, and the temporary auto-scaling group is also being deleted or terminated. So this is all about the immutable deployment strategy. Let's see the features right now. It has 0 downtime. New code is deployed to new instances on a temporary auto-scaling group. This has a high cost because you go double the capacity, because you are increasing the number of instances, or you are going with double capacity, so this will lead to high cost. This has longest deployment, but the benefit that you get from this deployment policy is that you get a quick rollback in case of failures. Just in case if the new application version is not working for you, if it's not working properly, then you can just terminate that new auto-scaling group, and then you can just retain your existing one. And this is great for production environment. There's one more strategy that I want to discuss with you that's called blue-green deployment. It's not one of the main strategies out there, but you can use it. So what happens in the blue-green deployment is, let's take an example. You have the users and they send the web traffic. They will generate the HTTP or the HTTPS traffic. That web traffic will hit the Route 53 DNS servers. And 90% of the traffic is being sent to the blue environment, because the blue environment will consist of the version 1 of your application, and rest 10% is being sent to the latest version or the version 2 of your application. So you have just split your environment in two different categories, blue environment and green environment. You use the weighted routing policy in Route 53, and you split the traffic in such a way that 90% of the traffic is being sent to the blue environment, which consists of the version 1 of the software, and the 10% of the traffic is being sent to the version 2 of your application, which is included in your green environment. Now, the thing is that once your green environment, it passes the health check, then you can use a concept called swap URLs. I'll show you afterwards how you do that. And you send the entire traffic to the green environment. And thereafter, you terminate the blue environment. So how this works for you? The blue-green deployment will increase the availability and reduce your risk. The blue environment is the production environment that normally handles the live traffic. Green environment is created with an updated version. Then you swap the URLs between these two environments so that the entire traffic is being sent to the green environment, which has the latest version running upon the instances. So that's all about the deployment strategies or the update strategies. I'll show you that how you apply these different deployment techniques. It's very easy. So I'll show you that how you can apply the immutable deployment strategy, and also how you apply or implement blue-green deployment strategy. So that's all about this thing. Thank you so very much. Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. In this video or the lecture, we'll see that how you can make use of the immutable deployment policy to ensure that you can update an existing environment. So you can choose a different application version, and you can choose the immutable deployment policy to update that environment or to upload or mention the new application version. So let's get started. Now, this is our Elastic Beanstalk dashboard, and this is the Node.js app. So if you see this thing, this is the application, and these are the two different environments. So let's go to the prod environment, and if let's go to this environment, I'll click on the URL or the link which is being a part of this environment. So if let's click on this link, this is the home page, or this is the web page that it displays. Now, if you see the background color, it's of green. So I want to change the background color to blue. So I want to change the background display from green to blue. Now, I will change the application version. So I need to upload a new piece of application code or the source code. And how do I do that? So let's go to my prod environment, and to upload the new application version, I just go ahead and click on upload and deploy. Now I need to choose the file, the source code. So I just click on this option, and it's already there in my downloads. Now I'll include this zip package, this source code, this application version source bundle in the resources section, so that you can perform the same things, the same lab session by yourself. So I choose the zip folder, click on choose. So this is the updated application version, or this is the source code that will change the background color to blue. And version label, if you want, you can change the label if you want, but I'll just keep it as it is. Now you have to go to deployment preferences, and by default, the deployment policy is all at once. Now we already discussed these 4 different or 5 different deployment policies: all at once, rolling with additional batch, immutable, and this is the 5th one, which is the blue-green deployment, which is additional one. So these are the 4 main deployment policies: all at once, rolling with additional batch, and immutable. All at once is the default option. Now let's go to immutable. Now, as we've discussed in the immutable, it will just launch a new auto-scaling group with the instances with the existing application version being running upon them. And then these new instances of the new or the temporary auto-scaling group would be merged in the existing auto-scaling group. And once these new instances pass the health check, the previous auto-scaling group and the old instances will be terminated. So I choose immutable. I'll just keep all the settings as it is. Healthy threshold, I will choose OK. Ignore health check, I can set it to false, so that even if this is not up and running or it fails, in that case, it doesn't goes back to the previous configuration. Batch size, I will choose the fixed percentage. I will not change any of the default settings. So I'll choose the immutable deployment preference, so that this deployment preference or this update policy will be used to update the application, to update the environment, to push the new application version, to change the web page color from green to blue. So just click on deploy and it will come into action. Now it will take some time for this to be up and running. So if you see that it says environment update is starting. So I'll just pause this video so that once this entire process is completed, then we can test the URL and see that everything is up and running. So let's pause, and once this entire process is completed, I will resume and we'll see that how it performs all the actions. Welcome back. Now, as you can see that this environment is updated successfully, and to test it, I just go to the URL or just click on that, and you can see this the blue colored web page or the home page that I get. So that's how you update your existing applications. You can push the source code and you can choose any of the deployment policies. You can choose rolling, which is the option in which the batch size is being included, rolling with additional batches, immutable. So you can choose any of the existing deployment policies, or you can just go with the default one that's all at once. In our case, we have chosen the immutable deployment policy. And if I show you the events behind the scenes so that we can exactly see that what happened, I just go to the events on the left hand side. And if you see the entire process, what it did is that if you see from scratch, it initiated a new auto-scaling group, and it also terminated the previous instances. So you can see over here that it created or it manufactured a temporary auto-scaling group. Then it added the new instances to the group, and it waited for the instances to pass the health checks. I'm talking about the new instances that are a part of this temporary auto-scaling group. Then it detached the new instances from the temporary auto-scaling group and included that to the permanent auto-scaling group. You can see over here, it detached the new instances with a new application version from the temporary auto-scaling group and added those instances to the permanent one. After that, it terminated the old instances with the previous application version running upon them, and also the temporary auto-scaling group. So these are the steps which are applicable in terms of the immutable deployment policy. So it terminated the old instances with the previous application version running upon them and the temporary auto-scaling group. And we have the updated application version up and running upon the instances, upon the new instances that are included in my existing auto-scaling group. So that's the entire process. That's it. Thank you so very much. In this video or the hands-on session, we'll see that how you can make use of the blue-green deployment method to ensure that once you deploy the new application version, then you can use an option which is swap URLs, or you can swap the link and ensure that your domain's traffic is being sent to the instances or to the environment with the new application version running upon them. So let's see the entire process. Now, as you see that this is the same application that we have been working upon. And in our previous lecture, I showed you that how you can make use of the immutable deployment policy to update your application version. So if I go to the left-hand side environment and click on the URL, you will see that it produces a page with a green colored background. And if I just go back to the other environment, so let me just go back to my prod environment. If I just click on the link, it produces a blue colored page. So in the previous lecture, I showed you that how you can make use of the immutable deployment policy to get this new page. And we have updated the source code or the application version. Now, I want to make sure that this prod environment URL or the link is the main link that my domain traffic should be pointing towards to. So my domain's traffic should be sent to this link, which will show me the blue colored background web page. So let's do one thing. I just go to my services and I open Route 53 or Route 53 under networking and content delivery section. And once I just go to the Route 53, I just go to my hosted zones. I click on my domain. Now I just create a new hosted zone, create a record set. And so this is my hosted zone for my domain. I just go on the top and click on create record set. And this record set would be sent to the alias record or the target. And the alias target I will choose would be this one, Node.js app. This is the environment, the test environment, which will produce the green colored web page if it is sent my domain's traffic to this link. So I choose this thing and I have to choose the routing policy. Now I choose the weighted routing policy because I want to ensure that 90% of the traffic will be sent to my green environment. So I choose my weighted routing policy. Weight would be 90. So 90% of the traffic should be sent to which environment? Let me show you back once again. So let's go back to the Elastic Beanstalk. I want to ensure that 90% of the traffic goes to this environment, this one. And if I just go to this environment, click on this link, it will show me the green colored web page. So the background color is green. So I want to ensure that I sent my traffic, 90% of my domain's traffic should be sent to this environment, which gives me the green colored web page output, right? So I just go back to the Route 53 dashboard and the set ID would be, for example, green environment. That's it. This is the set ID and I click on create. Now just create a duplicate record set and I will just forward rest 10% of the traffic to the blue colored environment. So I click on create record set once again, choose alias target. I will choose as this one, my app in prod link. Now this link is associated to the prod environment. If I just go to the prod environment and click on this URL or the link, so it will produce or it will give you the output in the form of the web page which has the blue background. So having said that, I just go back to my Route 53. So I choose my prod environment alias target, routing policy weighted, weight 10%, set ID, let's type in blue environment. Done. I click on create. Now the thing is that if I expand this, I'm sending 90% of the traffic to the green environment, to the environment which has the application version, which will show me the green colored background web page, and 10% has been sent to the blue environment, which will produce as the blue background web page as an output. So if I just open my domain and test it, so let me just type in my domain so that we can see if this is working for us. So here we go. You will see that I'm getting to the green web page because 90% of the traffic should go to the green web page. Now the thing is that I I want to perform a blue-green deployment, because if I just go back to my application page, I want to ensure that I phase out or I terminate the green colored environment, and I just divert the entire traffic to the blue environment or the prod environment. So I want to ensure that I terminate the test environment, I phase out the test environment, and divert the entire traffic to the prod environment. So I want to ensure that all my domains traffic should be sent to the prod environment, which will produce the blue web pages. So how do I do that? It's a simple process. I need to make sure that I go to the prod environment because I want the entire traffic to be sent to this environment. I just go there. And once I go to my prod environment, I just go to the action and I have to just click on this important, or I would say this is the most important setting that you have to click on or you have to go through: swap environment URLs. So I click on swap option. Now I want to swap the test link with this prod link. So I would choose my prod link and I want to swap this with the test link. So what it will do is that it will highlight this production link as a main link. So we are swapping the URLs. So you can see over here, swapping the environment URL will modify the Route 53 DNS configuration, which may take a few minutes. Your application will continue to run while the changes are being propagated. So I'm swapping the environment URLs so that my production link becomes the main link. And this will change some settings behind the scenes in the Route 53 DNS servers. So I click on swap right now in front of you, and you can see that it says Elastic Beanstalk is updating your environment. Now this takes a few minutes to come into action. The swapping is done, but if I just go to my domain, let me just go to my domain real quick so that I need to ensure that it works fine for us. If I hit refresh, let's see if it works, because it takes a few minutes for this to be up and running. So let's wait, because once we swap the URL, then in that case, the entire domain's traffic will be sent to my production environment or the prod environment, the advanced environment link, so that I can just get to the blue pages. And once this testing is successful, I can terminate my test environment, which gives me the green web pages. So we need to wait for a few seconds and see if it comes into action. By the way, we can do one thing in the meantime, because the prod environment is up and running. So we can safely do one thing. We can just go back to the application page and we can just go to the test environment, go to actions and click on terminate environment. Because our prod environment is up and running, we have swapped the CNAMEs for environments. So we have done the swapping. So it's safer for us to delete the test environment. So just go to the actions and click on terminate environment. And I mentioned the exact name of this test environment or the green environment before I can just click on terminate. So I just mention the name of it, click on terminate. So it's updating my environment. I would say that it's deleting or terminating my test environment, because I want the prod environment, the production environment to come into action, and the entire domain's traffic should be sent to the production environment. My entire domain's traffic should be sent to that single environment. So if I just go to the Node.js app and hit refresh, you will see that it will take a few seconds for this to be terminated. It takes some time. You can see that it's terminating everything behind the scenes. And if I hit refresh, you can see that it's working. Now, my entire traffic, my domain's traffic will be sent to Route 53 DNS servers to the production instances or the production environment. So I've swapped the environment URLs and ensure that my production environment is up and running. I terminated the test environment, and now the entire traffic is being sent to this production environment. So I've performed something called blue-green deployment. So I've removed my test environment. Before that, I've swapped the URLs, and then you can see that it's up and running. That's how you do that. That's how you perform the blue-green deployment. That's it. Thank you so very much. In this lecture or the video, we'll discuss the advanced concepts, including extension files, lifecycle policy, and environment tiers. Starting from the extension files, these extension files are located within .ep extensions directory in the application source code. These are in YAML or JSON format, and it's of .config extension, for example, logging.config. And you can use these extension files to change, execute, update parameters of components of your environment. As an example, you can see that this is the source code that we have used in one of our examples. And within the root of this source code, we have the .ep extensions directory. And under that, you have logging.config extension file. So we can use this .config ep extension directory, or I would say the extension file, that's logging.config, to change, execute, or update any of the parameters of any of the components of our environment. Now let's talk about the lifecycle policy. You can maintain up to 1000 application versions in your Elastic Beanstalk dashboard, and you can't go beyond it. Versions which are present in use, so any application which is supporting any of the version or application version will not be deleted. And you can retrieve your application source code or bundle in one of your S3 buckets. So this is my Elastic Beanstalk dashboard, and as you can see that this is the Node.js app, and these are the two different environments. One is suspended and the other one is up and running. If I just go to my application and go to application versions, you can see that these are the three different application versions that I have right now. So I can maintain up to 1000 versions at a time. So if I just go beyond it, first thing first, the limit is 1000. You can't bypass this limit. And any application version which is in use, any application which is running any of the application versions, so if it's running, it's being used, you can't delete that version. And you can retrieve your source code or the bundle in any of your S3 buckets. Let's imagine that I have to just create a new environment. So I just go to the environments, and these are two different environments under my Node.js app. I go to actions, I click on create environment. The very first thing that you have to choose is that what type of environment you want to select. Is it a web server or worker? What's the difference? If you go with the web server environment, then you can use it to run a website, a web application, or a web API that will serve your HTTP request. So any type of front-end web application or website you want to run, in that case, the environment that you should be choosing would be the web server environment. On the other hand, if there are some tasks that take longer time to be executed, for example, you want to process some videos. So for long-running workloads, you can offload those tasks or the workloads to the worker environment. In that case, you make use of the simple queue service queues. The web server environment means that you can use it to run a website, web application, or web API that serves HTTP requests. On the other hand, you use the worker environment if your application performs tasks that take more time to complete. You can offload these tasks to a backend or a dedicated worker environment. This means that you can decouple your application in two separate environment tiers. Your users generate the HTTP or HTTPS traffic, and the web tier in the Beanstalk, which consists of the load balancer and the instances, will take on these requests. And if anything needs to be processed, for example, the videos needs to be processed, those things are being sent to a work queue or the simple queue service queue. And then to process that work, there's a worker tier, which is a separate tier. The worker tier behind the scenes will consist of the instances and the simple queue service queue, and it will just process your videos or it will work on some backend processes or task. So it will execute any task that takes a very long time to get processed. So that's how you decouple your application in two different environments. One is a web tier, which is responsible to take the web traffic. And then if any of your tasks need to be processed, then you offload those tasks to the worker tier. In this video or the lecture, we'll just go ahead and add on a new database instance or the RDS database environment to the existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. So let's jump over to our management dashboard and start with the entire process. Welcome back. So we'll just go to the Node.js app so that we just go to the same application that we've deployed. And these are two different environments that we have configured beforehand. The first one is a test. And on the right hand side, this is the prod or the advanced environment. So I want to add on the database to this prod environment. How do I do that? I just go to the prod environment. And as you can see, if I just go to the events, there's no database added to this existing environment. So we have the instance, load balancer, CloudWatch, and the auto scaling. All these things are added on and they are part of this environment. But I just want to add on one single MySQL database to be a part of this existing prod environment. So to do that, I just go back to this environment page and let's go to the configuration. So on the left hand side, I just click on configuration. And once I just go over there, you will see that these are all the different settings or the advanced settings that I can manipulate. I can change these different advanced settings. Now, once I just go to these settings, I can just scroll down. And there are two things that I want to modify over here. The first thing is that I can just go ahead and start with the key pair. I can include the key pair so that I can use that key to access my instance. And through that instance, I can access my database. So I can just go to the security section first. And once I choose security, I just choose modify. And I just want to choose a key pair. Now, in that case, what it will do is that it will deploy a new instance with a new key pair applied to it. So I choose my key pair because I want to access this instance through which I can access my database. So I choose this key pair and click on apply. So it will just launch a new instance. So it will terminate the old instance and launch a new instance. So in the meantime, I can just click on confirm to just ensure that this applies immediately. And you can see that it has started the process behind the scenes. Now I just go back to the configuration once again. And the time has come when we have to add the database. So I scroll down and you have to look for the database over here. So this is the last option, the database. So you can see that there's nothing included in our database section as of now. I click on modify. So you need to choose your database option and just click on modify on the right hand side. So from here, you can include your database. Now, do you want to restore a snapshot or you want to deploy a database from a snapshot? As of now, we don't have any database behind the scenes. So the snapshot will be set to none. Okay. Then the next thing we'll do is that we'll just choose the engine. So in my case, I'll go with the MySQL. I go with the default engine version. The default instance class, you can change the instance class if you want. Then the storage will be 5 GB. This is the minimum storage that you can attach to any database instance. So I'll go with the default option. That's a 5 GB storage option. The username, I just type in the username to access my database in the future. So this is my username and this will be my password. Now, retention. This will just ask you to create a snapshot just in case if you terminate your environment. Now, this thing is very important for us to understand because we are including this database to be a part of this environment. In the future, if I terminate this environment, this database would also be deleted. So you can see the description down below. When you terminate your environment, your database instance is also terminated. So because these two things are associated with each other, if you somehow terminate the environment, this database instance will also be deleted or terminated and you will lose your data. So in that case, to be on safer side, you can choose create snapshot, because in that case, if you terminate the environment, then it will just back up your data in that case in the form of a snapshot. But as of now, I will just choose delete. So this means that in that case, if this EB or Elastic Beanstalk environment is being terminated, then this database will also be deleted and there will be no snapshot being manufactured. We can change these settings afterwards, but as of now, let's go with the delete option because I don't want to retain any of my databases or the snapshots. Then availability, I choose low, 1 AZ. I want my database to be deployed in one availability zone. If you want to go with the high availability option, you can choose multi-AZ. In that case, it will deploy two different databases. The primary database in my 1 AZ or one availability zone, and the backup or the standby replica database instance in a different availability zone. So let's go with the single AZ or 1 AZ option as of now. So I want to keep the thing simple. So these are the options I've chosen. So I want to deploy a MySQL database instance, which will be attached to this environment. There's one downside that if this environment gets terminated or deleted in the future, then this database will also be deleted. But we can change these settings afterwards. We can decouple the database from this environment later on. Okay. So as you can see that we have chosen all the different options, and let's do one thing. Let's choose all the options once again. So this is my SQL engine version, instance class, storage, username, password. I can retain my snapshot, or I can create a snapshot if this Elastic Beanstalk environment is deleted. And I can go with the 1 AZ availability option. Now, as of now, you can see that the apply option is grayed out for some reason. So I need to see that everything is perfect. So let me do one thing. Let me just go ahead and hit cancel and just try one more time. I choose my database, click on modify. So I'll choose same options once again in front of you. I will just include my username and I include the password. And so we'll just go with the same options. So as of now, you will see that we are not getting any option to apply these settings. Let's do one thing. Let's click on apply. So it's not being enabled. It's being grayed out. So there's something that we have to change because it is still not working for us. So we just hit cancel. So there's something that we have to change over here. Let's go back to the app and let's go back to the prod environment once again. I just go to the configuration and scroll down, go to the database, modify, and let's give one more shot. So I choose my username. Okay. And just make sure that I can include same in the password. So we want to delete the snapshot and that's it. So as you can see that now the apply option is highlighted. For some reason, it was not being showing up or it was grayed out, but as of now, it is showing up. We have chosen the same settings. We haven't changed anything, the same username, same password, but now, as of now, this is showing up. So we just click on apply and this will just apply the settings and a new database instance would be attached to my Elastic Beanstalk environment. So we have included a new database, a MySQL database instance to be attached and be a part of this existing prod environment or the production environment. So it will take some time. If I just go to the logs right now, or I would say, let's go to the events, you will see that it has just manufactured a database or it is in the process of creating a database. So it will take some time. We have to wait for some time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And once this thing is being completed, once my database instance is being deployed, I'll show you that how you have to change the security group. Because the thing is that you need to ensure that your database instance should be accessible from your instance that's a part of your Elastic Beanstalk environment. So if I just go to, let's suppose, services, and I open my EC2 dashboard, and let's go back to the instance dashboard. So this is my, let me show you. Okay. So this is my prod environment instance, the new instance that was launched with the key pair. So remember, I just included a new key pair to be the part of this instance so that I can SSH to this instance later on. So this is my new instance, and I want to SSH to this instance. And from there, I need to access my backend database instance that I've just deployed. So let me show you that database. I just go to the services. I open RDS in a different window or tab. So I just go to the RDS dashboard. And this is the database instance that it is just being created, or it's in the process of getting created. So I just pause this video for some time because I just want this database instance to be up and running. And once this process is completed, I just log into my instance, the EC2 instance, and from there I will just access my database. So let's wait for some time. And once we come back, once this process is completed, then we will see the further steps. Welcome back. As you can see that this database instance is already deployed. And as of now, this is backing up. So in the meantime, let's do one thing. Let's SSH to the instance. So I just need to ensure that I have a copy of my PEM key saved on my desktop. So let's go there. And this is the PEM key that I'll be using. So let's do one thing. Let's go back to our instance dashboard. Let's go back over there. And we will SSH to the instance. This instance, which is already up and running, the prod environment instance. So I open my terminal. And let me just increase the font size of it. And the very first thing I will do is that I will just go to my desktop where my key is being saved, and I SSH to my instance. So this is my key that I'll be using, and this is the username, the default username of my instance, because this is the Amazon Linux instance that I've just deployed using the Elastic Beanstalk. And let's go back. I just go ahead and copy the public IP. Okay, one thing I missed, I need to ensure that if I just go to my security groups, this is the group or the firewall being assigned to this instance. So I will just allow the SSH from my IP just to ensure that this will enhance the security of this instance. So I just go back to the terminal, and I need to just include the public IP or the public DNS name of this instance. So I just copy the public IP and paste it. Okay, let's type in yes, and I've connected to the instance. Now it says permission denied public key. So there's a possibility that I have misspelled the name of the key. So I need to ensure that I define the exact key name for you. And that's it. This is the one. So I've connected successfully to the instance that's a part of my Elastic Beanstalk environment. Now, the next thing I will do is the following. I will just issue some commands to connect to the MySQL database instance that I've just launched that is a part of my environment. Before that, if I just go back to my database, so I just go to the RDS dashboard, you will see that this is the security group being assigned to this database instance. Now, if I just click on this one and check the inbound rules, I need to ensure that the MySQL port is opened up. So as of now, you will see that it allows all the TCP traffic from this source. Now, this source most probably is the group, or this is the security group ID of my Elastic Beanstalk environment. Okay, so this means that I can just go ahead and from instance, I can access my database. So if I just go back to the instance dashboard and if I just check its firewall or the security group and just go to the outbound, so as of now, it allows all the traffic out. This means that from this instance, I can access any of the databases and I can just make a connection between my instance and my database. So I just go ahead and I will install the MySQL package. So how do I do that? Sudo yum install MySQL server -y. So I'm installing the MySQL communication package so that I can just initiate a connection or communication from this instance that's a part of my Elastic Beanstalk environment to a database that's a part of the same Elastic Beanstalk environment. Now, I'll run another command, sudo check config, so that I can just boot up this database service or database at every boot. So sudo check config mysqld on and sudo service. So I just restart the MySQL service, mysqld start. Done. So these are three commands that I have to initiate, or I have to execute these three commands to install the MySQL server communication package. Now, I will run this command to get connected to the MySQL database instance. So let's run the command mysql -h. Then let's go back to the RDS dashboard and I just copy and paste the endpoint name. So let me just open RDS dashboard or the database dashboard and I just go to the DB instances, click on this database instance and copy the endpoint name. Just go back and paste it. Now I just type in -P, that's for port 3306, then -U for the username. So the username is my DB tutorial, and then -P for the password. So I will just go ahead and enter the password. And here we go. So from this instance, I've connected to the MySQL database instance. And these two things, my front-end EC2 instance and the database instance, are the part of my same environment. I repeat, my EC2 instance and the database instance are part of my same environment. They're included as a part of same Elastic Beanstalk environment. Now, let's type in show databases, and I can see the list of databases that are created or that are the part of this database instance. So that's the entire process. This is the step-by-step procedure for you to include an RDS database instance to be a part of an Elastic Beanstalk environment. So that's all from my side. That's how you include a database to be a part of the existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. That's it. Thank you so very much. In this video or the lecture, we'll see that how you can make use of some techniques or the processes to decouple an existing Amazon RDS database instance from an existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. Because we have to remember one thing, if we terminate the Elastic Beanstalk environment and you have the databases linked with that environment, those databases will also be terminated. So let's see the entire process. So this is our Node.js app that we have been working upon in the past few lectures. And if let's go to all applications, this is the only application I have right now. This is the test environment which is terminated, and this is the prod environment. Now, if I just go to the prod environment and show you the existing configuration, I just go to the configuration right now and show you the database, scroll down and show you that this is the database which is being linked to this environment. The problem with this type of configuration is that in the future, if I terminate this environment, for example, if I just go to the actions and click on terminate environment, it will also delete this database, which means that there are some chances that my data would be wiped out if I don't have the snapshot manufactured behind the scenes. So how you can decouple this database from your environment? Now, what we'll do is that we will create a new environment, a duplicate environment, because this prod environment is being manufactured using the new source code. So if I just click on the URL, so this is the blue background that it's giving me in the form of the web page or the output. So I'll be using the same source code to deploy the duplicate environment. So I just deploy the duplicate environment and I'll ensure that once I manufacture a duplicate environment, then I will link this database with that new environment, that duplicate environment. So let's manufacture a duplicate environment. I will link this database to that new environment. Also, I will ensure that I will just initiate some steps to safeguard this database from deletion. And also just create a snapshot of it. And once I link this database with the new or duplicate environment, I will just initiate the blue-green deployment. I'll just swap the URLs and point my domains traffic to the new environment and terminate the existing prod environment. So let's see the entire process from scratch. First thing first, I have to manufacture the database snapshot. So I just go to the services and I open the RDS or the relation database service. And I just want to make sure that I just go to the DB instances and just go to the instance once again. This is the instance, DB instance which is up and running. I need to take a snapshot out of it. Now there are two ways out. Either I just go to the snapshot, I can just take a manual snapshot if I want, or else I can do one more thing. There's a alternate method. I can just go to my prod environment. I just go to the configuration and I just go to my database, click on the endpoint in front of you, and it will just open the RDS dashboard. And from here, I can just manufacture a snapshot. So if I just go to modify, I can choose this thing, retention, create snapshot. So this means that if I terminate the environment, it will manufacture the snapshot or the backup of the database instance. Okay, so it will perform the same steps or it will do that. So if just to safeguard this thing, I can just manufacture the snapshot or create a new snapshot. Fine. So we can go with either of these two ways. The best way out is that I can just go ahead and click on apply. And you will see that it will manufacture a snapshot of my existing database. So that snapshot will encapsulate my database backup. So let's wait for a few seconds and see what happens. So I just go to my RDS dashboard. This is snapshot dashboard and I hit refresh. So let's see if it does something, or I'll just take the manual snapshot, or I just take a new snapshot from scratch to ensure that before I perform any of the changes, in that case, I have a snapshot, because to ensure that we are on the safer side, we have to have the backup of the snapshot, or I would say we have to have the backup in the form of snapshot of the database instance. So let's wait for a few seconds because it's updating the environment settings. We have to make sure that a snapshot is being manufactured before this database instance gets terminated. Of course, we'll not terminate that, but just to ensure that once we delete the environment, just in case if this database instance gets terminated, in that case, we have the backup of the database in the form of snapshots. Now, you can see that it's been done successfully. I just go to the RDS dashboard, hit refresh. So if I see any snapshot, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll just manufacture a new one. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's manufacture a new snapshot. So I just click on take snapshot. I choose my DB instance. I just named the snapshot as test snapshot. That's it. Done. This is a manual snapshot I'm taking right now. Click on take snapshot. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind that the snapshot is not free of cost. You have to pay for it. So if you're using a free tier account to perform these steps or to practice by yourself, you have to pay for these snapshots. Okay. So just to safeguard my data, just to ensure that I have the backup of my data, I took the snapshot of this existing database. Now, I just go back to my database and I enable the termination protection. So let's click on the database identifier, go to actions, or okay, because one thing you have to say, it's backing up. So in that case, I will not be able to modify this database because once you create the snapshot, once it's backing up, you will see that the modify option is grayed out. So we have to wait for a few more seconds to see that it is being backed up. Let's wait. Now, as you can see that this database instance is being backed up. The status is available. And if I just go to the snapshots, so I've already taken the snapshot or backed up this database. So let's go to my databases, choose my database, click on modify. And the main thing that you have to do is that you have to immune this instance from termination. And how you do that? You just choose the enable deletion protection. Click continue. Now, we want to apply it immediately. So I choose this option, apply immediately, and click on modify DB instance. Okay. So now it will modify the attributes or this particular property of this database instance, and it will just immune it from the deletion process. Okay. So we have done everything that's important from the database perspective. Now let's go back to the environment dashboard, the Elastic Beanstalk dashboard. I just go to the app, and as I said before, this prod environment would be deleted. But before that, we have to manufacture a duplicate environment. We have to perform the blue-green deployment and ensure that the entire domain's traffic goes to the new environment. So what I do next is that I go to actions and click on create environment. Okay. So once I click on create environment, well, we have to choose the environment tier. So I choose the web server environment, click on select. Now we have to choose the environment name. So I can go with any environment name. So I'll just type in, for example, prod duplicate environment, prod duplicate environment. So it's really important that you specify that, the name of the environment. Then I specify the domain name. So let's type in prod, or I would say duplicate prod, something like that. And if I just check the availability, that's available. And this is the duplicate of the production environment of the prod environment. Done. And once I just specify the description, I choose the same platform, the pre-configured platform, that is the Node.js application code. I will choose so I can choose the existing version, or I can just upload the same code just to ensure that we don't miss out anything. So I choose the zip package. Now I include this package in the resources section so that you can perform the same actions by yourself. And this is the version label, and click on upload. Okay. So once I do that, before I hit create environment, I have to do one more thing. That is link this duplicate environment with the existing database instance, which is already linked to my prod environment. So how do I do that? I click on configure more options down below. So let's do that. Okay. So once I click on configure more options, I need to just scroll down and okay. So here we go. I was looking for this option, software. Okay. So you don't have to go to database, because if you go to database, you can just deploy a new database instance. But in our case, we have to link this environment with the existing database instance. Hence, you have to go to the software and click on modify. So once you go to the software settings by just hitting modify, because you want to modify some software settings, you just go to the environment properties and you have to mention the name and the value. So first thing first, let's type in RDS host name. So this is the process you have to follow. This is the entire stuff that you have to do by yourself to ensure that you can define the host name, then RDS port, then you have to type in RDS DB username, or I would say name first, so the database name. Then I define RDS user name. Then you have to make sure that you choose the same naming convention. You have to use the capital letters, the same format, the same order you have to choose to link the existing environment, or I would say the new environment, with the existing database instance. You have to follow the same format, the same order to link your existing database with the new environment. Okay. And then I define the RDS underscore password. Done. That's it. Now, how you fill the values. So first thing first, in the host name, I go to the RDS dashboard and I copy and paste the endpoint name in the host name. It's a simple thing to do. So I just go there and define the host name. Port would be 3306 by default, because we are using the MySQL database instance. DB name, the database name would be this one. So, okay, let's go to the database options. And so the database, let's go to the configuration. Fine. This is the DB name. This is the database name. So I just copy the database name and just mention that over here. Username. So I define the username of my database instance. Okay. I mention the password, and that's it. So this thing you have to do. These are the things that you have to mention over here. So I define the host name, port, database name, username, and the password. Fine. So this thing you have to define under these software settings, and you have to perform these actions in the process of launching a new Elastic Beanstalk environment. I just click on save and I click on create environment, and you will see that now it's in the process of manufacturing a new Elastic Beanstalk environment, which will be linked to my existing database instance, which is still a part of the prod environment. Fine. Now, in the meantime, I just want to make sure that this new environment, so this is the environment, duplicate environment, which is still in the process, because you can see the health status is pending. It is still in the process of getting created. So we have to ensure that it is up and running. So let's wait for some time. It will take a few minutes for this new environment, the duplicate environment, to be up and running. Once it's being done, we have to manipulate, or we have to change the inbound rules in the existing security groups. So we have to ensure that this duplicate environment is able to get linked to the new existing database environment. I would say we want to ensure that the prod environment, the duplicate environment, is able to communicate with the backend database instance. We have to manipulate the security groups in that case. But before that, we have to wait because we have to ensure that this duplicate prod environment is up and running. So let's wait. Once it's been done, I'm going to resume the session. I will just resume the video and show you the entire process from then onwards. Now, as you can see that my duplicate prod environment or duplicate production environment is up and running. And if I just click on this environment and just go to the configuration, you will see that I just go to the software and you can see it's linked to my existing database instance, which is as of now also a part of this prod environment, which I want to terminate afterwards. Okay. Now, let's go to the environment and let's do one thing. Let's go to the configuration and we can just check some of the important settings. The main thing that I'm looking for is the security group. And this is the security group which is showing up right now. This is the one. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's click on modify. And this is the main security group that's a part of this Elastic Beanstalk environment. So I copy this entire group ID, or I would say let's copy this one because the group ID starts from S3. And so I just copy the security group ID of this existing Elastic Beanstalk duplicate production environment. And then I go to the RDS. And once I just go to the RDS, I click on connectivity and security. And I need to make sure that this is the same security group, that security group should be linked to this existing database because this security group, as of now, it refers to this prod environment, this one. Okay, it's linked to this prod environment. If I show you right now, because I need to make sure that we can update the exact security group and apply that to the database instance. If I show you the configuration, just to show you, you will see that this is the security group of my prod environment. And if I show you the RDS dashboard, you can see that there's a patch. Okay, so let me just show you. Right, so this is the same security group. Now, I want to make sure that I change the security group of this database instance so that this database instance is completely linked with my new or duplicate production environment. Okay, so what I do next is that I click on modify. And once I just click on modify, I will just remove the previous group and add on the new one. So let's do one thing. Let's remove the previous group and mention the new one. This one. Okay. This is the one which is linked to my duplicate or new production environment. Okay. I just go ahead and click on continue and apply immediately. Click on modify DB instance and that's been done. Okay. That's being done. Now this will take some time to come into effect because as you can see that it is modifying. So once you change any attribute or property of the database instance, it becomes unavailable for some time. You can see that it's removing the security group of the prod environment and adding on the one for the duplicate environment. Okay. Then let's do one thing. Let's go back to the environment page. Let's go to the app page. I just go to the applications, Node.js app. And now I will perform the blue-green deployment. But before that, I want to ensure that the duplicate environment is up and running. It's giving me some type of output. So let's go to the prod duplicate environment, click on the URL, and here we go. So it's giving us the desired output. Okay. So in that case, I'll just go back to my Node.js app and remove this environment. So now, okay, before I remove this environment, I'll do one thing because I don't want to take any risk. I go to my duplicate environment first and I just go to actions, I click on swap environment URLs. So I go to my new or duplicate environment, the prod environment, duplicate prod environment. I click on swap environment URLs. And I want to select the environment to swap. So I choose my prod environment. So I have to replace it with the duplicate environment. Click on swap. So as of now, what I'm doing, I'm performing the blue-green deployment. So I've gone to the duplicate environment. I've swapped the environment URLs. And then I just go to my Node.js app and terminate this prod environment. Okay. So I choose my prod environment. I don't need that because I've done the swapping. I just go to the actions, click on terminate environment. I just mention the exact name of the environment to confirm that I want to get rid of it. Click on terminate. And that's being done. So as you can see that this thing is being implemented. So what I've done is that, so I've swapped the URLs. I've just ensured that my environment, the duplicate environment. So let me hit refresh real quick. So this prod environment is getting terminated. It will take some time. So you can see that the terminate is in progress. Terminate in progress. So I want that this prod environment gets terminated and this prod duplicate environment, it becomes the main environment. And it is connected to my existing database instance. And I've decoupled it from the existing RDS database instance. Because just in case if I terminate this prod duplicate environment in the future, my existing RDS database instance is not impacted because these two things are decoupled. Okay? These two things are decoupled. So that's the entire process. So if I just go to the configuration once again, I'll show you that this database instance is linked to my new prod environment and I can see all the details. So this is the entire process. These are the steps that you have to follow to ensure that you decouple your RDS database instance from your environment, because you want to ensure that if you terminate the environment in the future, then in that case, your databases are not being deleted. Because in that case, or in this entire process, you have to perform the blue-green deployment. So thank you so very much for watching this lecture. Once again, thank you. And that's it. Bye-bye. So we've discussed all the different topics of the Elastic Beanstalk and we have completed the entire masterclass. Let us summarize everything. We started with the Elastic Beanstalk overview. Over here, we have seen that what's the purpose of using the Elastic Beanstalk, why we use it. Basically, the developers use the Elastic Beanstalk to enhance their productivity because they just choose a platform, upload their application version, or they choose their source code, and the entire application is being deployed. So they don't have to get into the management complexities of the infrastructure. Then we discuss about the Elastic Beanstalk components. The three main components that we have discussed. One is the application, which is nothing but it's a collection of multiple Elastic Beanstalk components. Then we have the application version. It's a source code or it's a zip file that we upload to our platform to deploy the entire application. Then we have the environment. It's a logical collection of multiple AWS components that run an application version. So these are three main components that we've discussed as a part of Elastic Beanstalk. Then we discussed about the Elastic Beanstalk first environment. So this is a complete hands-on that we went through. We discussed that how you can make use of a simple mechanism to deploy an Elastic Beanstalk environment. Then we discussed about the launching an advanced or prod environment. So in this lab session of the hands-on, we included the high availability configuration preset. So in the high availability preset or the option or the mechanism, we include a load balancer plus the auto scaling. Then we discussed about the deployment options and policies. There are four main deployment options and policies we discussed. One is all at once, which means that all the instances are being taken out of service and we update all instances at once. Then we discuss about rolling, where we just take the batch size and we go batch by batch and we update our application versions. Then we discuss about rolling with additional batches, where we deploy additional batches so that we don't lose the capacity when we update our application version. And we discussed about the immutable, which means that you make use of the auto-scaling group and you deploy a temporary auto-scaling group to deploy or to update your application. Then we had the EB deployment policies hands-on. So in this policy hands-on or deployment policy hands-on, we implemented immutable deployment policy to update our application version. Implementing blue-green deployment. So in this session or the hands-on, we have seen that how you can implement a blue-green deployment, and also we saw that how you implement that. We also included Route 53 as a DNS server, and we saw that how you can make use of the weighted routing policy, and you can send a portion of traffic to the blue deployment or the blue environment, and rest of the traffic can be sent to the green deployment. And once the green deployment or the green environment is up and running, it's healthy, then you can swap the URLs and you can divert the entire traffic to the green environment. We discussed about the advanced concepts. So there are 3 advanced concepts we have discussed. One is the extension files. Then we have lifecycle policy. So if we talk about the lifecycle policy, you can maintain up to 1,000 versions of your application, and any version which is in use will not be deleted. Also, we discuss about the environment tiers. There are 2 types of environment that we have. One is the web server tier, and the second one is the worker tier. So what's the difference? In the web server tier, we use that to ensure that you can deploy your applications, your web API, and so on. So you can make use of your web applications, web API, or you can send your HTTP request to the web server environment. On the other hand, we have the worker environment, where we execute or we offload those tasks that take a longer time to be implemented. So if there are any tasks that take longer time to process, we offload those tasks to the worker environment. So in the worker environment, we make use of the simple queue service. We went through the hands-on of adding a database to an existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. So I showed you the entire process, that how you can incorporate or you can inculcate the existing database to the existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. Last but not the least, we saw that how you can decouple an Amazon RDS instance from an Elastic Beanstalk environment. This is very important because if you don't decouple the existing RDS DB instance or database instance from the existing Elastic Beanstalk environment, in that case, just in case if you delete your application or the environment, the database is also deleted. To prevent that situation, to ensure that you safeguard your data, you don't lose your database, you can decouple your existing database from the existing Elastic Beanstalk environment. So we went through step-by-step process to achieve that. So that's all we have discussed in this entire masterclass. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Thank you so much once again.